Here is a thought that is going to follow you around for the rest of the day. Every couple you have ever sighed over in a history book. Cleopatra and her Romans. The lords and ladies frozen in those oil paintings hanging in a museum. Your own great-great-grandparents leaning in for that first nervous kiss on a porch 100 years ago. Not one of them, not a single one of them, had ever once touched a tube of toothpaste. So what exactly were they kissing? Sit with that a moment. For almost the entire run of human beings on this earth, people fell in love, got married, and kissed each other goodnight, with mouths full of rotting teeth and breath you could practically lean against. And somehow, the human species carried right on. So how did they do it? How did anyone get close enough to anyone back in a time when a truly clean mouth was something not one living soul had ever seen? Let me take you back. Close your eyes and picture a morning about 5,000 years ago, in the mud-brick streets of ancient Sumer, down between the two rivers in the land we now call Iraq. A man wakes up after a night of no sleep, holding his jaw, and there is a fire in his tooth that simply will not quit. Now, he does not believe a little crack let some bacteria in. He has never heard that word, and he never will. No. This man believes, with his whole heart, that there is a worm, a living worm, curled up inside his tooth, chewing on the root. And we are not guessing at this. The Sumerians wrote it down, pressed into wet clay, a little poem where the worm itself bargains with the gods for the right to live in a man's gums and drink the blood beneath his teeth. A worm. Think about that for a second, and here is the part that ought to unsettle you. That idea did not stay in Sumer. It crawled into Egypt, into China, into India, into Greece, into Rome, and right on through the candlelit misery of medieval Europe. The toothworm was the official explanation for a toothache for the better part of 5,000 years. People believed in that worm longer than they have believed in most of their gods. So what did they do about it? Oh, you are going to wish you had not asked. If you had a bad tooth in old Europe, a barber, because there were no proper dentists, a barber would heat up a paste of beeswax and henbane seed on a piece of hot iron, hold a little funnel up to your open mouth, and blow the smoke down into the hole, to suffocate the worm. That was the medicine. You sat there while a man funneled fumes into your face, and then you thanked him for it. And the breath, you want to talk about the breath. The Romans, bless them, had a fix. They had noticed that if you let a pot of urine sit out until it went sharp, the ammonia in the urine could whiten cloth and it could whiten teeth, so they swished it around their mouths as a mouthwash. And the prized stuff, the good imported stuff, came all the way from Spain, sold in jars like fine wine. We know all this because a Roman poet named Catullus wrote a savage little putdown of a man called Ignatius, mocking him for grinning all the time to show off teeth he had scrubbed with his own morning water. It got so popular the Emperor Vespasian slapped a tax on the urine trade. And when his own son turned up his nose at money made from pee, the old emperor held a gold coin under the boy's nose and told him, "Pecunia non olet," money does not stink. Somehow, it gets worse. Now roll forward to Tudor England, to the court of Queen Elizabeth I. Something new and wonderful had arrived on the docks: sugar, and it was so rare, so expensive, that only the very richest could afford to eat it. You can already see where this is going. The wealthier you were, the more sugar you ate, and the blacker and more rotten your teeth became. And here is where people lose their minds a little. The teeth of the rich got so bad that black, rotting teeth became fashionable, a status symbol. Poor folk who could not afford a single spoon of sugar would actually blacken their good, healthy teeth with soot, just to look like they could afford to ruin them. A German traveler named Paul Hentzner met the Queen in the year 1599 and wrote that her teeth were black, and that this seemed to be an English condition brought on by too much sugar. The Queen of England, rotting her own mouth out, while a whole country lined up to copy her. You would think someone at court might have said something. Nobody did, and maybe you are still wondering about that kiss. Here is the secret. When every single mouth on earth smells the same, nobody notices the smell. Bad breath was not a flaw back then. It was simply the air everyone breathed. You loved who you loved, you leaned in close, and you never once knew the difference. Ignorance, it turns out, is the oldest breath freshener there is. If historical stories like these are the kind you like, do me a small kindness and hit that subscribe button so the next one comes and finds you. Now, where were we? By the time the year 1728 came around, somebody had finally had enough of the worm. A Frenchman named Pierre Fauchard, a sharp and stubborn man, sat down and wrote the first real book on the teeth and called it The Surgeon Dentist. And in it he said the thing nobody had dared say out loud for 5,000 years. There is no worm. There was never a worm. It is the sugar, you fools, and the acid it leaves behind. They call him the father of modern dentistry now, and he earned every bit of it. But here is the cruel little joke of history. Knowing the cause and having the cure are two very different things. Almost 90 years after Fauchard told the truth, the year is 1815, and Napoleon has just lost everything on a muddy field in Belgium called Waterloo. 50,000 young men lie dead in that mud. And before the bodies are even cold, scavengers move across the field with pliers, prying the good teeth out of the mouths of the dead. Why? Because rich people back in London needed dentures, and the finest dentures were made from real human teeth, young teeth, healthy teeth. They shipped them back to England by the barrel, boiled them clean, and screwed them onto little ivory plates. For decades, fashionable Londoners walked around smiling with the teeth of dead soldiers set into their gums. They even had a name for them, Waterloo teeth. They wore them like a brag. This seemed perfectly normal at the time. It was not. So how on earth do we get from that to the minty little tube sitting in your bathroom right now? It happened in steps and faster than you would think. In 1873, the Colgate Company started selling toothpaste in a jar, which was progress, except the whole family dipped the same brush into the same jar, which you will agree is just a fresh kind of horror. Then a dentist's son named Lucius Sheffield went off to Paris to study, and one afternoon he stood watching street painters squeeze their oil paints out of little collapsible metal tubes, and a light went on behind his eyes. He wrote home to his father, Washington Sheffield, in New London, Connecticut, and around the year 1892, the two of them squeezed toothpaste into a tube for the very first time, the thing in your hand. They invented the thing in your hand. But the rot was not truly beaten until a quiet man in a laboratory in Indiana named Joseph Mueller spent 10 years grinding up donated human teeth, testing more than 100 different compounds, hunting for the one thing that could make enamel hard enough to fight off the acid. He found it: fluoride. The town of Grand Rapids, Michigan put it in their drinking water back in 1945, and within a few years the children there had barely half the cavities of the towns next door. In 1955, that science went into a tube called Crest, and a few years after that, the dentists of America officially blessed it. And for the first time in 5,000 years, the worm, the rot, the black teeth, all of it began to quietly disappear. Now look at you. Look at what you have sitting on a shelf that you do not even think about. A soft little brush, a mineral squeezed from a tube that rebuilds the surface of your teeth while you scrub, clean water from a tap, and a real, genuine chance that you will go to your grave at 90 years old with most of your own teeth still in your head. Do you understand how impossible that sentence would have sounded to every single person who came before your great-grandparents? They would have wept. They would not have believed you. So here is what I want you to carry home from this video. The next time you lean in to kiss somebody and your mouth is clean and cool and you do not give it one passing thought, remember the long, strange line of poor souls who leaned in too, the Roman gargling his jar of Spanish urine, the Tudor lady proud of her black teeth, the Londoner kissing with a dead soldier's smile. Every one of them was a little bit out of their minds, and that whole mad parade of beeswax smoke and worms and stolen teeth is the reason that little tube exists at all. And you, my dear, get to live now and not then. So go on, go brush your teeth. Your old grandpa is watching.